Culton, director and writer of Abominable, asked me 3 questions. And so let's see what happens here. Jill, what questions do you have for me?
Let's see, what questions have I always wanted to ask John Losey? I would say, what is the biggest challenge for people that you work with and you're kind of counseling, like people who are in leadership positions? What is their biggest kind of challenge in their jobs?
Great question. And I think the thing that comes up over and over again is self-awareness and self-management. They might be totally talented and skilled in whatever they're doing in whatever industry, but they don't take the time to be present and know how they're behaving in the moment. And that goes for me too. It's one of the biggest challenges. Number one, to be present. And then the whole idea of managing yourself is realizing that you have choices. At any moment, you have a choice. And the difference is whether you react, you step into something and you just react to it, or if you step in with presence and respond, because you take that pause, you take that moment to gather yourself, and it allows you to both be self-aware, but also to practice empathy.
Right.
So that's what I see most often, is just this lack of self-awareness and self-management.
Well, my second question is actually to expand on that, which is, what, number one, like when do you take the pause? How do you know you need to take the pause? And what question goes through your head to put you in a space where you can respond instead of react? Well, like, how do you know when you're like, oh crap, I got to take a pause?
I think, oh, pause, I got to take a crap. Is that the?
Yeah, that. Yeah,
I think
that.
One of, like, the most obvious one is when you start to feel strongly about something. If you catch yourself having really strong emotions, either joy or really pissed off or angry or frustrated, as soon as you feel yourself having these strong emotions, that is a prompt to say, oh, wait a minute. Where am I in this? Because usually what happens in any of those situations, we point outside of ourselves. And so, look at that. Why are they doing that? What's going on here? And it's outside. But really, that becomes the prompt to say, whoa, take a minute. Let me take a breath. Why am I having such a strong reaction? And just that is like the most obvious ones. But really, I think, at least for me, and what I recommend with a lot of people, when you step into a room, take a deep breath and say, what do I want to be here? How I want to be intentional about something. What do I want that to be? So there's the obvious triggers that will, as soon as you become aware of the behaviors, like if you can feel yourself getting flushed, you start to either shallow, rapid breaths, you're going into fight or flight. And that's the time to to choose to think better rather than just let our amygdala make the choices for us. But the reality is, for me at least, oftentimes if I know I'm going to go into a meeting where there's somebody in that room that really pisses me off, on the top of the agenda or on the top of my journal, I'll write down, this is who I want to be in this moment. Then I can choose it.
Right. That's great advice. That's great. I remember, this reminds me of a story. I used to go into rooms. This is when I was first kind of starting off as a director. And I would go into rooms, and the rooms would turn into kind of they became more argumentative than I wanted them to. There was like the studio kind of batting back at me and me batting back at them. And I'd leave the room feeling kind of not good. You know, it was like, what came of that? Nothing really came of that, except for we're all angry now. And I told my producer, I said, what can I do in that room that's better, because something in there is not working? And she was so great. Her name was Michelle Murdoka, and she said, you have a telltale sign. She said, your lips get really tight when you're mad. She said, you could be smiling, but your lips are like pursed really tight. She said, first of all, unpurse your lips. She said, second of all, realize that every single person in that room just wants a say. They want their voice heard, and everyone in that room actually has a right to have their voice heard. So instead of batting back, listen to what the person's saying and try this phrase. She said, try saying, I'll think about that, instead of batting back. And so the next time we came into that room, everyone's opinions go flying, and I thought, wow, they're all just wanting to have a voice. And one of the more argumentative women in the room batted something at me, which normally got me worked up. And I said, that's interesting. I'll think about that. And she went, and then she was like, oh, okay. And it diffused the entire thing because I said, I'll think about it. And that's all that people want sometimes, is to be heard. Yeah. You can come back in the next meeting and say, I thought about it and here's what I think. But it was so good. That was like a page of wisdom I took away from
meeting jujitsu. You meet force with force, it only compounds. Whereas if you let it flow, it opens up possibilities.
Right. Or if you absorb it instead of pushing back, sometimes you'll get a better reaction. But great.
Okay, one more question.
One more question. Let's see. Who is your favorite musical influence and why?
Great question. I've got two. And I think you're familiar with both of them. David Wilcox, amazing guitarist, and also his lyrics are just so rich. And even if they aren't his songs, the covers that he chooses to do are just amazing. So David Wilcox and Jimmy Buffett.
Yes.
And Buffett's, like, his famous songs aren't his best songs. He is a true storyteller, and you listen to his songs and he puts you in a place. And I love both those artists. Those are my absolute favorites. Right now, I told you earlier in our interview that my work music is Keith Jarrett. And I'll go on to, and I'll play the Keith Jarrett radio station, and it just plays all these wonderful, mostly solo piano jazz. My son calls it the Charlie Brown music because he goes to the Charlie Brown Christmas special. So, yeah.
What's great is, this is a good tip too, is that, like I said, a lot of times I listen to soundtracks, and it might be like Rupert that I'm listening to. I love Thomas Newman, Rachel Portman. There's some great composers out there. You can go on to any of those things like Amazon Music or Apple Music and just put in Thomas Newman playlist. And what it will do is not just generate, just like it does in Pandora or whatever, it won't just generate him, it will start to broaden out to different composers that are like him. So like you can walk for hours or be, working for hours and just get this flood of wonderful influences that are, like-minded to the things you like already, just like, the music that you pick.
Well, and so I've got the smart home stuff. I don't want to say the name because it'll activate it, but you can choose, like, I can do either. If I say, play Keith Jarrett or play Jimmy Buffett, it will just mix those artist tunes. But if you say the station or like Jimmy Buffett radio or whatever, it'll play the mix of all the different artists that are similar. Yeah. So maybe I'm just old and geeky about that, but I know that, most people know that already, but to me it's like wonderful because it creates the soundtrack of my day.
Yeah, that's exactly it. The soundtrack of your day. I think that's a good takeaway, which is everyone should have a soundtrack of the day. Don't you think?
Yeah. So I just got to share this in the last little thing here. People, like, if you go to one of my workshops or presentations, whatever, you'll notice I always have music going. If you walk into a room, I think if you walk into a room without music, it's like walking into a room without furniture.
Yeah.
It just sets things up so well. And a lot of so I'll go in and I'll be working with somebody or somebody else is leading the workshop, and I'm there 10 minutes early. I say, hey, can I do something? Can I just, can I pipe into the system here and play some music as they come in? And most of the time they don't even think about it. But to me, it's so essential.
Yeah, that's so good. It's so important.
So Jill, thank you for the 3 questions, wonderful questions. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to answer them for you. I look forward to our next conversation.
Sounds great, John. Thank you so much.